What up, everybody? It's episode 159 of the Beefy Boys Breakdown. We're going over UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik, Gaziev. Apparently, it is Gaziev. I was saying it Gaziev. I think.
You know what? You know what I realized? It's like Fiziev. Like if the last four letters are the same, we got to say it the same way. That's what I was telling myself. Is I was like, do I say Fiziev or do I say Fiziev? And I was like, well, I guess I have to say Gaziev.
Yeah, it's Gaziev, but also what about Tamir Valiev or Tamir Valiev? You remember that guy? I mean, that's basically a similar.
Yeah,
I don't
shouldn't.
know, but hey,
Yeah, I don't know
I
Cyrillic
mean,
language well enough.
yeah, there's plenty of English kind of grammar rules that make zero sense at all. So it might just be one of those things. But yeah, man, we're gonna start with the main card, and I don't know. I gotta say, we were kind of shitting on this card. We were not the only ones that were not super stoked for this card. It seemed like a filler card. Apex, bullshit, meet the ESPN quotas. But I gotta say, man, I mean, it ended up being a super watch from a watchability standpoint. This card was kind of fire. I feel like the pacing was good. I
It's
don't know, a lot
it's
of finishes.
it's odd. It seems like we always with the cards. We're like, I mean, we described this one as hot dog shit. I mean, we were talking about how it's bad betting values, even though we didn't miss a pick. Shout out if you guys are wondering. We do have a betting video that we're putting out. We didn't miss a pick this week, so get your money. In total, if you'd bet $25 on a 15 parlay, five straight between the two, the prop, the dog, and the parlay, you'd have turned $25 into $87. So. I mean,
Nice.
yeah,
You're
you're talking
welcome
about
out there.
almost quadrupling your money just on our picks alone.
You're welcome out there. And I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. We'll do our separate betting video, but I actually feel more confident about
Yeah,
next week's
this
picks
I
than
feel
I did last
way
week's
feel
picks.
way better about this coming week than this last week. I felt like I was having to scour for stuff, and usually when you're having to search that hard, it's not fruitful. So I was impressed and proud of ourselves, man. In all honesty.
Yeah. So make sure you tune in. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that way you know when we drop the betting video. It's usually on Wednesday or Thursday. Getting ready for the upcoming weekend and cashing them tickets, folks. So yeah, make sure to check that out. But we got fights to talk about. We got the main. We'll start with the main event first. We got Rozenstruik, Gaziev, and I gotta say, man, I feel like we were kind of sold a false bill of goods here. This was supposed to be kind of the aging vet kind of passing the torch to the young lion.
Well, I'm just wondering,
How much of a young lion Gaziev is, man? Hey, I mean,
well, not that young either, 35. But I mean, we had discussed it beforehand that the win over Martin Budai is not a great win to stand on. And then if you're gonna fight someone like Rozenstruik, who's fought every guy in top 50 or top 10 of heavyweight, that's why he's 12, is because he's just lost his way back to that point. I thought that it was a no bet for me, but if I kind of saw it as a pick 'em in all honesty. So with that, if I were going to make a bet, it would be on Rozenstruik. But this was just a no bet for me because I saw too many ways either guy could win or lose.
yeah, this was a no bet for me. We had seen, not necessarily the best trajectory for Rozenstruik as of late, coming in as a plus 160 dog, ranked 12th, as you mentioned, fighting an undefeated guy, but who's 1-0 in the UFC. So he's 12-0 overall, 1-0 over the UFC. As you mentioned, that one win wasn't that spectacular but I mean, I don't think a ton of people felt comfortable betting against the 12-0 Dagestani guy, but
Right.
I don't think too many people were juiced to bet for him either. I think a lot of people probably didn't bet this one, or I don't know.
Uh,
That sure seemed that way.
I would bet a
Um,
lot of people probably bet the under and probably got fucked.
Yeah, you're right, because this did go have some distance on it. It goes 4 rounds, was about to go a fifth. Um, we can get into it a little bit. I thought Gaziev, won the first round. He got it was a snoozy round overall, but and it was weird because I do think Rozenstruik even won the damage battle. He had the nose leaking a little bit with the jab, but the takedown late for Gaziev, and just he kind of had Rozenstruik on the back foot most of the round. I don't know. He didn't strike super effectively, but he was kind of pushing a little bit of a pace, octagon control. I mean, it was kind of a snoozer of a round. He got the takedown.
No, I mean, yeah, it was all these rounds, honestly, minus the fourth, are, in my opinion, low action for what these two guys I expected to bring, with Jairzinho obviously being a striking background. And then I think, I mean, I just thought Gaziev, he has a lot of power. You thought he'd try to put it on display, which Wasn't that he wasn't swinging for it. He just has no accuracy, I suppose. And also, I got to ask the question, can we get this guy a mouthpiece that'll fit in his fucking face?
Yeah. Is that what it was, or was he doing that on purpose?
Yeah,
you can
I
breathe
wonder.
a little better.
Like, is his cardio
I never
that
used
bad?
that kind of mouthpiece. I was always like an old school, like 90s football mouthpiece kind of guy. But I don't know if it was one of those fitted ones. Was it done poorly, or was he just kind of letting it sag there to like suck wind? Was his jaw damaged? I really don't know. But it was a weird look and was like very obvious, like while you were watching in real time. The announce team mentioned it a few times. But yeah, so round one, you gave it to Gaziev, I assume?
I did, yeah. I gave it to him 10-9. I mean, albeit a fairly competitive round, I just thought that he kind of did enough in the last 90 seconds to steal it out for himself.
For sure. But then, I mean, basically the rest of the fight, or at least rounds 2 and 3, look pretty like similar. Might be able to lump them together here because I think Rozenstruik won them both kind of undoubtedly. But I mean, in the round 3, really no, from rounds 2 through 4, the offense from Gaziev basically trickled to a halt. Like, I mean, he had some snoozy clinch work, but I mean, he didn't get another takedown the rest of the fight. Didn't land anything of significance or clean. I mean, he threw a few, but
the only thing he landed past round 1 was 2 like very nice knees to the body in round 2 with the like 4 minutes of clinch control that he was forcing. So I thought round 2 was close in the aspect of like neither guy's really doing anything, and it's like Rozenstruik's jab compared to 2 big knees to the body and a lot of clinch control. So for me, I was just like, I'll give it to Rozenstruik because I think that like overall damage he's ahead, but I thought that round was close, and I could have seen a Gaziev case there, or Gaziev case there. Now 3 and 4, zero chance.
I didn't want to reward that snoozy clinch.
That's
There's an
argument
for it, but like I wasn't going to stand for it on my scorecard. You know what I mean?
100%.
I don't believe the judges liked it either.
So actually, I was going to say the judges' scorecards are very strange. One judge gave rounds 1 and 2 to Gaziev. So had the fight.
Wow, I didn't even consider that.
Had the fight as a draw going into round 5. Sal D'Amato, who that guy just, I'm losing faith in him now too. He scored it more so like we did, 1 to Gaziev and then 2, 3, 4 to Rozenstruik. That scorecard I'm fully here for. Now also though, Chris Lee didn't have a single round to Gaziev, and I feel like round 1 not to Gaziev is hard to do.
Bro, I'll be real. I thought these rounds were so crystal clear and easy to score that, like, that's why I didn't even think to talk about them, and we ended up getting a finish. But, like, I didn't even think to talk about the scorecards because I thought this was an obvious one. Like, I didn't even think there was anything really up for debate. Wow, that's like, shows you how bad it is.
Yeah.
I think we both agree with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty obvious, like, 2, 3, 4 is Rozenstruik. Round 1 is probably Gaziev.
What are we doing?
Yeah. And like all the momentum going into 5 was Rozenstruik. Like for any of these cards, like for Derek Cleary to have it tied up, I know that Rozenstruik's going to win that 5th round. Gaziev admitted that he could not see out of his right eye. You know what I thought was hilarious? He was gassed.
He gassed in the 3rd round. We kind of glossed over the 3rd round. That's when Gaziev really started to look like dog shit. He gassed. He gassed, I mean, and that's where his mouthpiece was dangling out of his mouth like you were talking about earlier. Like, it was just a bad look. Like, the offense trickled to a stop. His defense trickled to a stop. It was just Rozenstruik literally, like, basically just, like, hitting mitts. Like,
that's what it looked like. Like Rozenstruik, like, essentially being like, all right, I'm not going to let you grapple me, and I'm just going to try to strike these mitts and then work my way back. It, honestly, kind of a boring main event.
Oh, super boring. You don't got to sugarcoat it. But what I'll say is I was shocked that once Gaziev's, like, round 3, Gaziev gassed, the defense and offense both, like, basically are non-existent. And Rozenstruik still wouldn't just pull the trigger,
I know.
man. Like,
that was a big problem for me.
The 4th round, he started throwing some right hands finally, and we get a little bit of actual damage, a little exciting. Like, round 4 wasn't bad, but there's zero reason why round 3 shouldn't have looked exactly like round 4. Like, Rozenstruik was facing, like, danger coming back his way.
I felt like Rozenstruik should have probably been able to get him out of there in round 4. Now, you could argue he did, because the fight does end 5 minutes round 4, but, I mean...
And I gotta say, I scored round 4 at 10-8.
I didn't, but more so just because I guess it was probably the visual of, like... I don't know. It just didn't seem like the damage felt more cumulative than it did like in that particular round.
Here's my caveman logic for giving it a 10-8. And I know a lot of people out there probably didn't. But here's why I did. If round 3 was a 10-9 with all jabs, you start landing some heavy rights because it basically looked the same, plus like 5 or 6 like clean heavy rights.
Yeah, he just never got wobbled though, and to be that gassed and still not wobble him, I don't know how hard you're connecting.
Yeah, I feel you. I think was it Bisping talking about the size of his?
Yes. Yeah.
He was like, "Yeah, try knocking that out." Like, I think there's maybe a little something on
That's
that.
a good point, dude. But he looked like an absolute tank, like literally a tank.
The nose was completely destroyed. I mean, there was some blood, some visual damage. I don't know. Did any judge go 10-8 in round 4?
They didn't, but I see the case, and more so, I could build the case on just the fact that what did Gaziev do? Like, if you do absolutely nothing, it's hard to even get a 9.
Actually, you know what? I actually am glad you made my point for me. That was another big reason. It was one-way traffic. Like, there was in no way competitive.
Right. It was not a competitive round. That was my biggest takeaway from it.
Like, giving Gaziev 8, you know what I'm saying? It's a 10-8. You give one guy 10, you give one guy 8. It was more so I had to give Gaziev 8 for that performance.
Man, so I'm just looking at some reactions to that fight end, or that fight stoppage. You have some fighters saying it's a good stoppage, but you have a lot of fighters saying that Gaziev took the way out. Like, a lot of fighters saying that.
I don't see how both aren't true. And I'll also say dog shit corner work.
Yeah.
Gaziev was basically quitting at least my interpretation. There's a language barrier here. We're seeing, like, we don't have 100%. But my interpretation, tell me if you agree, I thought he was basically like quitting to his coaches, but like in Russian or whatever language they were speaking. And then the coaches like weren't like relaying that to Goddard. They were trying to like quickly exit the cage, and Goddard picked up on that vibe, and Goddard like demanded that the coaches tell him what Gaziev said.
Yeah, I actually
Gaziev said he couldn't see, and basically didn't want to keep going.
I was going to touch on that Mark Goddard, that might be the best job he's done, like outside of the actual fight, but in getting the fight to be stopped, because he looked at the corner and like he could tell like this is some fuckery. That's not what he's saying. And then he like looked at the guy, and I specifically remember him looking at him, and he goes, "Do the right thing." What is he saying? And it's like, that's a pretty like weighted statement when you think about like how heavy that statement is, because it's like, for a corner guy, this guy could die in here if you don't like, if he can't see and you send him back out.
That's my main takeaway. Is like, that's probably some of like the sketchiest, like whatever you want to call it, bad intentions, not like good practicing corner.
Right.
Like, because we've talked about on this show, and I don't want to get too far into it, but we talked about how we want to see more kind of guys corners throwing the towel, like some of those, like the Sarah Alpar fight back in the day, or the even some that just like shouldn't have not have kept going.
Bro, you can almost make the case that Sopai's fight could have had a towel thrown in the third. I mean, he got abused for 4 minutes until he got cleaned, and that's going to change his career.
Or even this last Juliana Pena fight where she was getting like 10-8'd like every round, like that fight shouldn't have really gone 5 rounds. So we always advocate for there should probably be more towels thrown in. Just like, why take the miles off the career?
Exactly.
And it's like punting. It's like in punting in football. Like, this drives over.
Right. Like take your L. Like, you don't have to go for it. It's 4th and 14 from your own 34. What are you doing?
Yes, exactly. But so I was kind of like offended at the corner work, and they're supposed to be his countrymen, or like quite literally in his corner. Like if anybody's supposed to be your advocate in this scenario, it's them, and they're throwing you to the wolves. Like, I don't know if it was some macho shit, or I don't know, bro. It was sketchy. It was like not like the word is like not honorable. The word I'm really wanting is escaping me, but it just felt bad, felt gross, felt icky.
It's shisty, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, man, like, you guys train with this guy every day. Like, even if you think he has it in him, and if he's telling you can't see, fuck it, don't make him fight. Like, what are we doing? Yeah, that felt very shady.
It was not a fan. Honestly, felt bad for the guy. Like, it not felt bad because he lost. Like, felt bad. Like, damn, these are like your friends. Like, these are like your, like, you know what I mean? Like,
a fighter chooses their corner. Like, these are the guys you chose to say would have your back. Like clearly,
you trust these guys. Yeah, yeah. Like I hope he's not like doing financial investments with these guys. And
In
so it
Bahrain.
goes down as it goes down as a TKO. Um, I would kind of consider it more of like I feel like Conor McGregor here, doctor stoppage, but I would consider it more of like a ref stoppage. But I guess if a ref stops a fight, that's a TKO by definition. I don't know, it's weird. It's a unique because it took place like before the fifth round could start. It goes down as like a fourth round TKO, but didn't like watch that way. It's kind of a weird one.
Yeah,
Makes sense, I guess.
I wrote it as doctor stoppage, but to your point, yeah, I guess it is a ref stoppage technically because the doctor doesn't tell the Goddard he can't fight. It's Goddard just saying like, "Oh, he can't see. I'm not going to let him fight."
Yeah, shout out to Goddard, man. I thought he handled that beautifully.
Yeah,
and,
it was fantastic. I actually,
and as a fan, I don't feel robbed because that fight sucked anyway. So like, let's wrap this up. I was like trying to cook dinner. And
yep, 100%.
I was like, fuck watching 5 more minutes of this hot dog water fight. Yeah, but I guess let's keep it pushing to the co-main. Obviously, I guess we can talk. We got to talk about what's next for each of these guys briefly. Heavyweight is so garbage right now. I mean, Tuivasa and Rozenstruik, they haven't fought yet, have they?
No, and I don't believe Tybura and Rozenstruik have fought, and Tuivasa and Tybura fight in 2 weeks. So essentially, like winner fights winner.
I say we bracket it.
Yeah.
And then Gaziev, the thing is, ordinarily I would sink him far, but the division's so dog shit that like right now I have Gaziev at like 17 in my power rankings. Behind him are Romanov and Budai. And obviously he beat Budai, and Romanov has looked like shit lately.
Well, and it would be so hard to lose against 12 in that fashion and like have fighters questioning your will to fight and your cardio and all this stuff. Like all these negatives that come from the way the fight took place. And then moving forward, you're going to ask for another ranked opponent, even though you botched your attempt this time. Like he asked to fight someone unranked, and that's fucked because the heavyweight's so shallow that like the skill disparity is just gross at heavyweight.
No, seriously. Like, I have Dontel Mays at 25, and I view him basically as like a can. And he's like the 25th, like...
Quite literally a can.
But, like, heavyweight barely has a top 15. You could argue they don't. You could argue heavyweight has a top 10.
Would you say maybe Justin Tafa versus Gaziev?
Yeah, they have a fight book. I saw on social media. Who are they fighting? They're fighting... Buddy, this division sucks. But yeah, they basically have a fight book. Yeah, I think you can maybe go with the young like Mick Parkin.
Oh yeah.
Somebody like that. Like yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's so shallow. Gaziev, you could do Gaziev Romanov. I mean, you could just kind of like for the back end there for another shot at their rankings.
It sounds bad, but Gaziev being 35. I think
he's 34. I think he's 34. I mean, who cares? But I think he's 34.
I'd probably use him to build younger heavyweights because I don't think he's a top 10 heavyweight ever.
Feed him to Mick Parkin. Or that'd be a good test for Mick Parkin. He's 8-0 right now.
Like, you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me a lot of Abdurakhimov. Like, he could maybe hit 15 or 14, but he's not getting higher than that.
No. And then, see, he got a main event. We also didn't touch on that. I know we need to keep pushing, but like, he got a main event in his second UFC fight. Like, that's wild, undeserved, and he fumbled the moment.
Yeah,
so like,
huge.
if he would have got a first round finish there, UFC comes out looking like the smartest guys in the room. Like, see, told you he was the main eventer. But like, everybody was sitting here saying no, he's not, and now we look like smart marks because we're like, why is this guy getting the main event? Just like Joe Piper. Everybody in this guy, I made this point on Twitter, and we can keep it pushing, but I wanted to say it on the pod. Like, everybody's complaining about these Apex cards. I don't think the location is the problem. It's the Pipers and Gazievs of the world that are the problem. Like, I don't think anybody's complaining about Tuivasa headlining next week. Like, that makes sense. Like, that's like, we're not asking for pay-per-view headliners, but like, give me a fucking Tuivasa, a fan favorite, a guy people give a shit about. Don't give me Gaziev.
Yeah, it feels like they're trying to give me a choice level sirloin and call it a prime rib, and it's like, this ain't the same. Like, this is not the same.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Give us that carne asada, that Tuivasa at least.
Yeah, at least give me that skirt steak.
Yeah, we'll keep it pushing here, man. To another honestly disappointing performance, and I swear this card, like, it's kind of good that we're going backwards because that's kind
Yeah,
of the order
I
of
was
how
going to
good
say the
like, it
same
gets
thing.
better.
The fights get better
Yeah.
toward the front. It was crazy.
Vitor Petrino is undefeated. Came in at minus 375. I had him on a parlay. Shout out El Dorado. I got him at minus 330, so I got a little value there for once. Taking on Tyson Pedro, veteran, plus 295, light heavyweight division. This was really supposed to be a feeding for Petrino, but he came out and laid an egg.
Bro, he fumbled the bag so hard for 10 minutes, and then he looked good in the last 5, and I thought, if you just fought this fight in the first 5, you probably get a finish in the second round. Like I was.
Oh yeah. If he fought like he did in the third round, the first, I mean, maybe he doesn't make it out of the first. I mean, I think physically it wasn't even close. Like you had like an aging guy who was kind of flabby, taking on an absolute brick shit house slab of horse meat that is Vitor Petrino. What is it about guys named Vitor, man? What is it about guys named
Also,
Vitor?
what is it like? I mean, we always say that if it's a retirement fight, like we're gonna fade the guy retiring, right? Well, earlier in the card we have Pickett and Anderson. It's like a double retirement fight essentially. Like we just know that neither of these guys are staying, so that's like when you don't bet like that. But if you had told me Tyson Pedro planned to hang it up and he was not inspired and didn't have a dream to be a fighter anymore before this fight took place, I would have bet everything I own on Petrino. And that being said, Petrino still managed to fumble the first 10 minutes with that being the mindset of his opponent.
Yeah, because I gave Tyson Pedro the first round. I thought it was very close. I thought you could honestly have gone either way, but just the calf kicks and the footwork and the activity, I gave it to Pedro. Petrino landed some stiff jabs in there, like maybe the most impactful strikes of the round, but just not enough activity to give him the round.
So I did give it to Petrino, but mostly just on a damage basis. And that's just because Pedro, all of his success, I felt like, was the leg kicks. I felt like he found no success up top. So, seemed like a money in the bank round. So if he scored it for Pedro, I have no problem with it. Because, like, honestly, if he continued to do that and wins the first and second doing that, then that makes sense. And I thought the second was close to be fair, too.
Well, bro, I'm actually, like, in the moment, I was kind of, even though I bet, I have a good ability to remain objective, even because I bet Petrino. And he was the third leg of a parlay that was still alive. But I was like mad at Pedro. Pedro, how on my scorecard, he won the first round because of the calf kicks, right? He abandoned the calf kicks.
I know it.
He just abandoned, he stopped doing it. He would have won the fight if he just kept doing it, in my opinion. Like I said, I gave him the first round. Like he just stopped doing what won him any success.
Well,
I mean, Petrino, so I gave it to Petrino from 2, but like almost by default, it was more for what Pedro didn't do.
Yes, that's 100% correct, man. It was just no activity from Pedro that was meaningful whatsoever in round 2. Like he, almost like the Gaziev point, like, man, if you just don't do anything, it's going to be hard for me to score this round for you.
And Petrino didn't really do shit either. Like I said, it was almost like a demerit for Pedro because you had a thing that was working, you had a path to victory, and you just said, "Nah, bruh."
Yeah, it's like abandoning abandoning the run game, and you're up 28-3. Like that's crazy.
Oh, the Kyle Shanahan special.
Yeah,
the Kyle Shanahan special. You mean? Oh, yeah.
That's kind of.
Sure.
I mean, that's actually a really good comparison. Is that he came out, ran the ball hard in the first half, kept the game like insanely close, even though he's a big underdog, and then said we're just going to air it out in the second half. And it's like you weren't going to be successful if you did that.
Yeah, no, it was frustrating, especially from a veteran. And then, Petrino, round 3, Petrino actually wakes up, gets off the bus, shows up in round 3 like fucking Bobby Boucher at the Bourbon Bowl. and fucking, I mean, round 3 was awesome. Round 3 has the big slam takedowns. He looks like he's a WWE wrestler. I mean, he's all jacked and shit. He had the arm triangle attempt. Yeah, man, I don't know. I just, do you think it was like a fight IQ thing or an effort thing or a nervous thing? Or like, what do you think was the performance? I mean, Petrino won the fight. I mean, I don't know how hard you can be on him, but that was a bad performance.
I wanted, like, when I was watching the fight live, I wanted to say that it was, like, respect to Tyson Pedro's power, because he does have good power. But honestly, man, like, the way Pedro loses is whenever you bait him into throwing big shots, because he leaves himself open, and Petrino is probably faster and stronger and punches harder. So I just thought, like, man, Petrino, like, the way you'll lose this fight is to not go for it and to let him circle the outside with leg kicks and shit like that. And it's like, if you just go forward and pressure him in his face, like, you're the bigger, stronger, more athletic, faster guy. So I just thought Petrino continually was fumbling the bag until round 3.
For sure, man. He woke up in round 3. I mean, he's undefeated. He's now 11-0.
Calls out Anthony Smith. I don't love the call out. I think it's a little too much of a jump.
See, it aligns with my power rankings personally, which is why it makes perfect sense in my head. But if you're talking the promotional rankings and shit like that, like, we're out on Anthony Smith, and I'm kind of still in on Petrino because, like I said, even in a bad performance, you beat a guy like Pedro convincingly. Like, he's a co-main event, trending upward.
I also will say this for like Anthony Smith, he's fought in the UFC for so long. His base has got to be huge, like his base pay, because it does scale based on how many fights you've.
Oh yeah. He has a big check.
So they got to pay him a lot. So if you're going to put a guy like Petrino out there, you're not going to put Anthony Smith against him unless it's a pay-per-view. And I just don't see that being a thing that they would put on a pay-per-view card.
No, bro, that's a fight night main event all day.
Man, maybe.
I mean, a dog water one.
But like
But
my point is like, if you're gonna pay Anthony Smith, let's say $250,000 to headline the fight night, all good. I get that. That's worth it because it's 5 rounds. But is this guy Petrino, after this performance, worthy of headlining a fight night?
Here's why I'll say yes, because
consider that 5 rounds. That makes it a 5-round fight to make it a UFC Fight Night main event too. Just keep that in consideration.
Light heavyweight's thin and old, much like heavyweight. So that's why I think like investing in Petrino is not a bad idea. So, like, for example, in my personal power rankings, I got Petrino ranked 11 right now, and I have Anthony Smith down at 15, mainly because of the age and the miles. So that's why that makes sense to me all day. I mean, it's kind of Petrino and Rozenstruik, both undefeated. Really, I think they're the only undefeated fighters in the division. And they're kind of, in my opinion, in my power rankings, how I view it, they're kind of duking it out for, like, who's the hot shot light heavyweight prospect. And Petrino, with the card placement and I think name value, I think more fans probably know Petrino. I think Rozankinov's still, like, kind of, like, he hasn't really built his name up yet.
100%.
Especially his last fight being a no contest. So it's like he's kind of getting skipped. I mean, what other prospects are there? I mean, there's Olberg. Olberg, I think, is coming up soon.
I'll give you my take on what I think. Olberg is good, but here's what I think the UFC, if they're business forward thinking, which clearly they are, the move here is you make him fight Dominic Reyes. Why? Dominic Reyes, maybe you pay him as much.
Actually, I think that's who Olberg's fighting. I'm almost positive.
Their
logic, you nailed their logic.
Yeah. It's perfect because Reyes is going to get knocked out by a guy with a lot of power. He goes for it. And, like, shout out to him. He's going to make it a fun fight. It's going to be very entertaining. It's going to help build the star of the guy he has to fight, right? Olberg or Petrino in this case.
Playbook. Yuri playbook.
Yeah, it is. It quite literally is. So it's like, but also, if he loses to Petrino or Olberg, it's almost like, hey, we can cut you now, too. And we don't have to pay this guy this much money as an old vet.
No, for sure. That's why, I don't know. I'd be interested in it. And then in the post-fight, I don't know if you saw, they asked Anthony Smith about it. And they're like, what do you do with a guy like Vitor Petrino? And he said, whatever I want. And he was like being all cocky and shit. So I don't know. I can see him doing it. I can see him doing it because he basically said he was down for it. So.
Anthony Smith, man. I feel bad for that guy because he is, like, super down in game. And, like, but you know what? I say all that. They gave him a lot of opportunities. And they gave him a lot of good card placements. And not that he hasn't earned it.
Post-fight career set up.
Yes.
Yeah, he's fine. And then, speaking of post-fight career, and then we'll keep it pushing, Tyson Pedro does retire. Makes sense. I mean, he's trending downwards. He's not that old, but he's trending downwards. And he's just honestly being real with himself. Like, he's not that guy.
I got the feeling that he wants to become a coach at a gym and raise his daughter and just make a wage and, like, get to, like, spend time with his kid. I legit think that's what he was alluding to.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I think more guys should, as opposed to the Tony Fergusons of the world. They're just, like, spinning your wheels in the mud. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Pedro kept it a buck.
That's a great
Pedro
comparison.
was like, hey, like, I'm not ranked. I'm taking L's. Like, the division's moving onward and upward. Like,
well, and unfortunately for Tyson Pedro, he's one of those guys that like probably could have been better than he ended up being, but they made him fight a lot of killers when he was really young. He had to go find his way again outside the UFC. I fear that is the same thing that happened to Sopai, which we'll obviously get to in the prelim breakdown. Which don't forget to check that out for all you fans at home. Prelim breakdown, just for you guys, by the way, not nearly as the name value. The fights were crazy good. Crazy.
Yeah, they're going to be fun to talk about. Like, we have a potential like knockout of the year.
Oh, for me it is 100% right now, no question. Like how clean it was, how technical. Oof.
So yeah, make sure to check that out for sure. One of the only podcasts out there that are going over every single fight on every single card. That's what we do here. Plus, we give you winning bets. But yeah, speaking of winning bets, Petrino cashes the leg of the parlay. Let's keep it pushing to another leg of my parlay. Muhammad Mokaev, 23-year-old young lion. Ranked 8 at flyweight right now, taking on former title challenger Alex Perez. Perez, big underdog at plus 300. Mokaev finished at minus 380. I got him at minus 420, so shout out the El Dorado. Super like consequential fight for the division. Pantoja's had Mokaev's name in his mouth as a potential next opponent. Just because the division there's been so many rematches. Pantoja's beaten so many of these guys that they literally are looking for fresh blood. And this was set up. Basically, this was supposed to be a Mokaev showcase. And
yes, that is what I want to get into with this, man, because I think we're going to have slightly opposing viewpoints. For anyone at home that's unaware of the Beefy Boys hype trains, Dominic conducts the Mokaev train. I'm literally sitting in the middle of the railroad ready to stop this train. So that, just for like viewpoint purposes, that's where him and I are with Mokaev. My whole point is that he is a one-tool player. Now, his one tool is crazy good. He can out-wrestle anyone. But I just don't see him having a multifaceted approach, which I think you have to have at the very top.
So there's a couple overarching broad stroke takeaways I want to mention before we dive in, because I'll say my biggest thing I was mad at Mokaev for during this fight was not striking more.
Yes,
I thought he won basically all the stand-up exchanges.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear you say that.
I'm so happy to hear you agree with that, because where I'm going is I don't think that's a one-tool player.
But it is because it's his choice, and he clearly is not comfortable striking even when he's better. Yeah, he's not comfortable using a tool that he could use, but he's just not comfortable. He like, dude, the squatting down to get a takedown to like try a duck under shit. He will get flatlined by someone doing that. Because they're going to catch him with a knee, because he's not putting his hands on the ground when he's doing that. Someone's going to knee him right in his face.
Second broad stroke takeaway, I had counted Alex Perez out. He hasn't fought in 3 years. He's pulled out of a couple of fights, but he's also out of a couple of opponents pull out. He's had some injuries. So he hasn't fought in 3 years. I was so out on Perez, and I did not view him as a top flyweight any longer. That's why I think Vegas felt the same way. That's why you got the bettors definitely did. That money line, I think that's the story of that wide money line. I got to say, performance like in a vacuum, Perez showed up and showed out. Like, Perez performed better than any of us expected. Let's be honest.
100%. Like, for me in my power rankings, he did not get dropped one spot. Like, I mean, he already sat at, I think, 9 or 8 for me. But it was like, and I already had Mokaev ahead of him. But I thought he fought a really good fight. And to your point, because I raised this point that if Perez is going to fight him a very close fight like this, and it's going to be highly contested, what are these other guys going to do? And your counterpoint was, well, Perez is a wrestler. Like, that is his best skill set as well. So this is essentially best on best, with neither guy having, like, a multifaceted skill set.
That being said, though, Perez has gotten out-wrestled in the past.
By Pantoja, by Royval.
So it's like Mokaev hangs his hat on his wrestling. For him to not dominate that, I didn't love it. But what the redeeming thing so I got to say, everybody on X is agreeing with you. I listened to weighing in and with John McCarthy and Josh Thompson. They both agree with you that Mokaev didn't look like a next title challenger. I'll say I kind of had a different takeaway. Of course, I am the Mokaev ball washer, so it's expected. But like the striking, he made such an error not striking.
Yes.
I think that he could have probably beat the shit out of him just striking.
I 100% agree with you, man. And I think Perez literally used a camp for training for Mokaev where he only wrestled. He didn't do any striking defense because why would you? It's not something he does.
So, admittedly, being glass half full optimistic here, I'm saying I'm kind of choosing to view that as a positive. Like, that's fixable. Like, that's there. And I'm not saying that's there to where, like, oh, that beats Pantoja, that's there. But I don't think, like, I think he made a few bad decisions. And, I mean, call it excuses, call it what you will. Apparently, he was really sick.
Yeah. I did take that into account. Like, he's young, and that might be the first time he's ever had to legit battle on a fight day against his own self.
Hardest opponent he's ever had. I mean, I have a hot take that I know nobody on earth agrees with. I gave round 1 a 10-8. I did. Fucking yeah.
How?
Just basically, he won. I really did value that strike. He won the striking at the start of the round, and then he dominated on top. And this is really where the 10-8 comes in. I really do think Perez was like saved by the bell there. Like
marginally, because he was in a spot.
He was like essentially not. He wasn't going to get up, and he really wasn't intelligently defending. Like Mokaev just basically ran out of time there. I mean, even by my standards, it's like an 8.9 on verdict. Like, I'm not super bullish on it. But I thought he was, like, basically about to get the finish.
Well, and I thought that, to Mokaev's credit in this round as well, it's the least Perez did and the most successful Mokaev was with his wrestling outside of the end of round 3.
And I think the most damage Mokaev got off 2 out of any of the rounds.
Yeah, because in round 2, I mean, so I scored at 10-9 Mokaev. Judges all scored this fight the exact same. Round 1 to Mokaev. 10-9. But what I noticed in round 2 that like stood out and horribly bad for Mokaev was he was 1 for 9 on takedowns in round 2. And every time he was getting like in those takedown spots and in the 50-50s, Perez was throwing bows on his head. He was putting in damage in the transitions. For me, I thought if this round is a stalemate wrestling, which if I defend 8 of your 9 takedowns, fuck you, I won that wrestling match. But outside of that too, like Perez won the damage battle, and I was like, Mokaev's in trouble right now. Like if he doesn't get his head out of his ass and start to throw some strikes to keep Perez honest, like he's not going to win.
I agree, and that's when Mokaev was like doing those. And DC had the perfect like metaphor. He said it was like basically the equivalent of a jiu-jitsu guy pulling guard. Yes. He was just like dropping to his knees and like grabbing towards like an ankle. You can hardly even call it a takedown attempt. I mean, it was bad.
Yeah, and like, dude, a guy like Royval or Pantoja is going to jump on a sub in that spot because they're way more fluid and flexible.
That's a really good point. That's what I'm saying. Even we're joking, Mokaev, ball washer, all that, leading the hype train. I don't think he's beaten. Now, I don't think he's beaten any of the top guys.
Now, I do want to make this point for Mokaev. He dug deep in round 3, got that insanely beautiful suplex, which, like, on a guy that's wrestling, suplexes are hard to get. And then also did pretty solid damage in round 3. Like, I thought round 3 was Mokaev's best overall round as far as, like, his personal skill set mixing, but round 1 was his most dominant, if that makes sense.
Well, and I think more so is Perez's worst round. Perez got like literally no damage off the whole round, got slammed. I mean, there's no way to really say nice things about Perez. I mean, he defended a couple of takedowns, but it doesn't really matter when he gets slammed. Then he got no damage off. So, yeah, I mean, my wild ass scorecard is 29-27. Mokaev, everybody else on planet Earth scored at 29-28. I'm willing to admit that. But yeah, So what I'm saying is Mokaev beat Perez on a bad night. And yeah, that's a spin job. I admit that. But like he beat Perez on a bad night. I think the striking's there, like we've already talked about. I won't rehash it. And then like we know he can wrestle, even though it was his best night at the office, wrestling wise. But that being said, I mean, I still have him behind. We'll get to it, behind Erceg, behind Kopp, and behind Nicolau.
Ooh, behind Erceg is interesting. Although, after this, we'll get to it very soon.
I think
you ain't wrong. Yeah. You ain't wrong, actually. Now,
I don't think I'm wrong.
That. No,
I really don't. And I had my rankings done first, but John McCarthy agrees with that. A lot of people I saw on the internet agreed with that.
Oddly enough, I have Cop behind Mokaev, but that's specifically on a matchup basis only. Does that make
I'm
sense?
gonna grab a beer real quick. You said you have Cop behind Mokaev?
Yeah, but only because like if they fought, Mokaev will beat Cop because Cop won't defend the takedown.
Ooh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I think Cop has a few problems. It's obvious, obviously on the feet, right?
Yeah.
And then I do think he's like the bigger, stronger guy, probably better athlete.
More explosive.
He's definitely more explosive than Perez, who just gave him a little trouble. I think it'd be a sick fight, but I'll be right back. I'm gonna grab a beer real quick.
Yeah,
I got a point I want to make real quick before we move on.
Right, sweet. We'll take a. Okay. What do we got in there? We got white fridge door. All right, we love it. Coors latte. We were trying to figure out. The audience was trying to guess.
Oh yeah, man. Coors Light are my go-to on fight days. I just buy a 12. Right? I mean, they just sip so smooth, keep it going steady. You're not going to get hammered up IPAs and be asleep on the prelims. You know, it's nice. It's a nice pacer. So my point is, I don't know if anybody follows this on Twitter. If you don't, at Beefy Breakdown. Me and old Slick Diaz, pretty well-known MMA kind of account. We kind of got into a healthy debate.
Oh yeah, I thought it was
what should be next for Mokaev.
It's like a solid MMA community back and forth, in my opinion. But yeah, let the people know the discussion because it parlays into our discussion of it.
And he gave like three options. I think it was like Erceg,
it's Cop,
maybe
Erceg,
Nicolau, and Cop.
Yeah.
So it was like a poll on Twitter about like it's like who should Mokaev fight next, and I like quote tweeted it saying I think it should be Albazi. And he was cool with, like, going back to why he said why he didn't. He thought that Albazi deserved to fight up, and that Albazi kind of had earned all these, like.
I pushed back on that a little bit. I'm gonna grab a water real fast, but yeah, explain why you like Albazi there.
Well, so Slick Diaz's point was that Albazi should essentially be rewarded for beating Cara France and being undefeated. I just think if you do a little closer look on that, I don't know how much of a reward it deserves because all of his wins outside of Cara France are like elite cans, like tier cans. None of those wins are shit at all. And then the Cara France win on me, and I think your scorecards was a gift. We both scored it for Cara France.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I thought Cara France kind of got robbed in that decision. So I wasn't going to elevate Albazi from that. But I also thought my overarching takeaway because, like, it's like Diaz's point, he won on paper. Like, you know, what else you got to do? I get it. But I think Moreno and Albazi is just, like, set in stone. There's no way around it. Because they were already booked.
That needs to happen.
So it sucks, but, like, by that... So, like, I'm not even saying that Mokaev Moreno's not, like, the best fight to make. I'm just saying it's one that they almost can't make because of the position that it's like the Gaethje Holloway shit. Like they fucked themselves by that happening, and Royval beating Moreno, and like I mean yes and no, but then the reason it screws them is because now Erceg, Cop, Mokaev, and Nicolau are in a 4-man bracket to see who gets to be the one to go challenge those three, and it's like that kind of sucks because I don't think Albazi deserves that.
Yeah, I see. Because I think Albazi loses maybe to all four of those guys.
That's my biggest problem here.
That's my logic. Like that's my main reason why I think you do Mokaev, Albazi, especially if you throw that in Abu Dhabi or something that's like real big like, for that part of the world. But like that's my logic for making that fight because I honestly think those other guys are all better. Like I think Erceg deserves big thing. I think Cop deserves big thing. And I think Nicolau slept on. Nicolau's like resume is impressive.
You know what's crazy about Nicolau? We did our way too early predictions, and I had predicted him to be the champion of coming into this year. So I'm high on Nicolau.
Like with you, I'm like higher. Like he's scoring at my power rankings. You look into it a little closer.
Yeah, and he's dark horse. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't get any respect. It's almost like Bilal. Like Bilal's the boogeyman in that division. Like he's coming. It's just
when actually recently. So him and Cop have a split decision, and I actually rewatched it because I was doing a deep dive on flyweights, and I like And Nicolau like won that fight fair and square.
Yeah,
Like, I probably shouldn't have been a split.
I believe we both scored it
Like,
for Nicolau and like made a stink about it being a split. Because it's pretty clear 2-1, if I recall.
Like I'm high on Cop, so that win holds a lot of weight. Like that's more impressive than anything Albazi's done or anything Mokaev's done, and that's coming from a Mokaev guy. So I think Nicolau. I mind seeing Nicolau Pantoja. I wouldn't mind seeing him skip Royval. I'm kind of over these snoozy Royval fights.
Yeah, like the Royval thing sucks because like Royval Pantoja probably just has to happen. Like Albazi Moreno essentially has to happen. Like the UFC has almost handcuffed themselves into that position by booking that fight and how it went. Moreno Royval.
But speaking of future contenders and guys that matter a lot to a division, man, up next we got Umar Nurmagomedov finally fighting after the shoulder injury and the surgery and pulling out of the Sandhagen fight. He's still undefeated, 16-0, ranked 13 at the moment. I think most people consider him to be higher than that, but he just hasn't had the requisite fights and the requisite opponents to work his way up the rankings, the activity, none of the above, really. But he's taken on a killer out of Kazakhstan, Bekzat Almakhan, plus 750. Umar coming in at minus 1,200. And if you watched last week's betting episode, we told you that this value wasn't there to lay on Umar and that this Bekzat guy wasn't a can.
And that he was going to be dangerous.
It's kind of got proven true. Yeah, I think we come out. We're the only show. No other show is out there like talking about Bekzat like actually being good.
No. Coming into it, so for the main card, I had shout out Andrew Moakley, Moke over to watch it with me, and then his brother-in-law Braden was over. Braden is a fighter, like he's gonna have his professional debut in April.
Sick.
And he was like a really great wrestler. Has wrestled like Dayton Fix, who's on the national team for the United States. So he's gonna be good. Really, really in on Braden. Hype for his career. But so he watches every event. You know what I mean? He's deep in it, like balls deep, like we are. And so when we're talking about it, he's like, Umar's about to do his thing out here, and I was like, be careful. Bekzat might be a little more dangerous than you think. And he was like, who the fuck is that? And I was like, see, that's the thing. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
You don't know.
And also, part of my argument for Bekzat maybe having some success here was that Umar's coming off a shoulder surgery, coming off some inactivity. Like, if there was ever a time to catch Umar, it was like right then, which makes a lot of sense. And this fight starts off.
I was going to say, talk about catching someone. Round one.
Bekzat fucking catches him with the right hand, and now on slow-mo, it ends up being kind of a glancing blow off the temple. But regardless,
it dropped
fuck
him.
All that. It dropped Umar, and dropped him, sat him down.
Also,
that wasn't a slip.
Does he have a Dagestani chin or not? Because that wasn't the hardest shot. Bekzat was throwing 100% shots, actually. I'll take that back.
Dude, Bekzat's a dog. Yeah. I'm kind of in on Bekzat. I kind of like him.
Yeah, I kind of like him, too. He'll actually be a problem for other bantamweights.
I believed he was the only person to ever drop Umar, and I haven't gone through tape annex style, but I feel confident in saying that, and so that's a feather in the cap right there. Now the thing that was disappointing
still lost the round.
Definitely still lost the round because Umar it was crazy. Honestly, it was wild. While recovering from being dropped, gets a single leg.
Bro,
it was
the way he got
crazy.
the single was like a corpse that you know what I'm saying? When a snake, for instance, when you kill it but you poke it and it still freaks out because it still has the nervous system running. That's what he was operating on. He was corpse
he hit the ground and somehow ended up in a single leg. When he dropped. It was wild. And then he finished it yeah, it was super impressive. As impressive as that was for Bekzat, it was equally as impressive for Umar. That may have been the coolest getting dropped to ever exist. Because he literally bounced into a single leg.
It kind of puts more on Umar's plate or adds to him, I guess, that he can survive that, wrestle through it, and still win the round. And then honestly, round 2 I was teetering 10-8. Round 3 I gave 10-8.
Yeah, so I was real generous with the 10-8s, obviously, last night.
We're in Vegas.
2 and 3.
We're in Vegas. That's where they're supposed to flow.
I went because in round 2 he was 3 for 3 on his takedowns. he kept advancing position on most of those takedowns and got a lot of ground and pound elbows in. Got some ground and pound elbows in on round 1 as well. And then round 3, I mean, there was so many elbows. And, those single legs were automatic. It was like spamming on a video game. Like a move that just worked. Like,
it was like gross. It was like gross. Like, it was like drilling. Like, it was like, you're gonna get it because he's letting you practice.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Yeah, man. So it was so automatic every time he grabbed one. Now, Bekzat would scramble like crazy. Once again, it wasn't just the one punch that while we're high on Bekzat. Like, he scrambled, guess what? How many bantamweights are getting up for 2 of Umar's takedowns? In a round. Not many. Bekzat did.
Yeah, and he's not getting finished either. I mean, this fight goes to decision.
Yeah, bro. Exactly. But yeah, round 3 stepped up the damage. You're right. Like, if round 2 was like maybe like an 8.9 on verdict, round 3 was like a straight up 10-8.
I think they were quite literally like round 2 was like 8.91 on the verdict card, and then I think round 3 was like 8.84 on the verdict card.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Now, round also shout out verdict. We got a silver medal this week on verdict.
Take those.
Boys, yeah, we take those. But yeah, man, one judge actually does agree with me. I was so stoked too because I knew nobody agreed with my Mokaev 10-8. I was like, if I look like a jerk up on this one too, that's going to be a bad look.
Damn,
but yeah, one judge agreed with me, and shout out. But yeah, both 2 other judges go 30-26. So it was crazy. This fight was super entertaining because it's crazy because I scored 30-25, but yet it was more competitive of a fight than anybody anticipated, including Vegas. But that sounds like a riddle or like some kind. You know what I mean? That sounds like a riddle. Like how is a 30-25
like paradoxical,
like a pretty competitive fight?
Right. Yeah. Like it wasn't pure dominance as a 30-25. Now, one judge gave round 3 the 10-8. The other judge gave round 2 the 10-8. So the 10-8s are split from the singles, and then obviously
which kind of leads
to the point of like 2 and 3 both 10-8s. I mean, two judges gave 10-8 in both those rounds. In other words,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, for sure. So I mean, Umar's now 17-0. He called out Sandhagen. That fight was like already booked once. They're gonna do it. That makes all the sense in the world.
100%.
So I don't think we need to spend time on that. Which, by the way, my personal power rankings, I have Sandhagen 4, Umar 5. So like makes perfect sense in my brain.
That'll be a really good fight too, stylistically.
Bro, I have Bekzat at 24, sandwiched between Daniel Marcos and Javid Basharat. I think he's that good.
I like that.
I think he's like at that level. Like,
well, especially after having watched, like, what do you think about? How about Zahabi versus Bekzat? Would you make that?
You could. I'm hammering Bekzat. Bekzat. Like see, Zahabi he's won 4 in a row. And I just don't see. He's 36 years old. He's won 4 in a row. You'd think I would be all in, and I'm just still not convinced. Like, I sound like a hater. But
I feel like
not all that
Zahabi's the guy like squeezing the magic out the end of the rope. Like, I think he is at the very end. Like, he's just waiting for a devastating loss to really end his shit.
And I think sometimes we all squeeze the magic out of the end of the rope when we get lonely. But
yeah, sorry about it, David. Hey, man.
But man, up next, man, we got into this Erceg Schnell matchup, man. Like I said, super impactful for the division. Schnell, like, been top 10 for like the past 3 years. Been in some epic fights. Kind of in a gatekeeper stage of his career, but like well respected. Coming in ranked 9th, plus 350, taking on Astro Boy Erceg, ranked 12, minus 455 though. So Vegas and the betting public was all over it. Man, I mean, I think it's safe to say best in the division. I mean, you could argue cop and like you're not going to sound like an idiot, but like,
see the difference.
I mean, you're not going to sound dumb if you say cop, but
the difference between Erceg and Cop's like power and striking level, and just like, I guess overall striking difference to me is that Erceg looks so calm when he's doing it. Like, he looks so composed all the time, whereas, like, Cop looks kind of fervent, like he's trying to force it and find holes. I feel like Erceg is just, he's going to, like, he figures the puzzle out, man. He's dangerous.
I'll put it this way, man. If you're talking in a boxing match, the squared circle and 12-ounce gloves, I take him over Moreno, Pantoja, or Royval.
I agree. Yo, yeah,
Like
but he's just so happy like be in the pocket and just roll with shots, and he fires power that does not look like it's that strong. Like the shot he ends the fight with didn't look like it would be as like he fucking flatlines.
Yeah, it does. It's crazy. No, that being said, obviously ends in a finish. But round one was like a very close war. I thought they went to absolute war. Which Schnell fights are always like that, dude. Schnell fights are awesome. Like as far as like guys I like watching fight, like Matt Schnell's right up there, even with the loss. Schnell fights are never boring.
I have in my notes that it's a really close round, but I do also have that the visual damage is leaning for Erceg because Schnell was getting kind of busted open and Erceg was not.
Exactly. He was busted open. He ended the round strong. I think Erceg like definitely won the round. Like the right guy won the round, but like still was a war.
Super fun round too. Yeah, Schnell's chin was crazy in the start. Erceg too. Erceg ate one or two, maybe even three, like pretty good shots from Schnell.
Yeah, I literally have cracked a few times. And then also Schnell was defending Erceg's takedowns, so like, it was competitive as fuck. But I think the right man won. I think Erceg won, but like fun ass round. And then round two, man, 26 seconds in, walk off KO, bro. This is like a star building moment. This is like an O'Malley type of moment.
Yeah,
it really was, bro.
Well, it looked like
a ride.
It looked like the Eddie Wineland knockout, where like Schnell just like dropped dead into a coffin, like done. And for Erceg, he immediately like connected and was like done, just like turned away. Dope moment, yeah, walk off, dope moment, and not like a bullshit walk off where you're like trying to get it. Like it was so clean, it was like, yeah, I'm not gonna hit him again.
Over, yeah, a follow-up shot would have been insane.
And you could also argue that Schnell, way better chin and way better opponent than Eddie Wineland was.
Oh yeah, by a mile, by like a country mile.
So, but yeah, like I'm high on Erceg. That performance was big.
That's why I skipped him over Mokaev in my power rankings because it's like, dude, Mokaev ain't doing that, and Mokaev's not eating that. Mokaev don't want no part of that. Like.
Yeah, no, I know it, man. But I wonder because Mokaev is such an interesting matchup for anyone he fights. Specifically he's just going to force the wrestling so much, and if you can't defend the takedowns, you can't beat him.
Yeah, but Erceg, I mean, granted, he hasn't fought a wrestler like Mokaev. I don't think he's like easy to take down or stays on his back, or he's pretty well rounded. And like Mokaev, like Perez wasn't throwing nothing like that coming his way. Like when you said earlier, like when Mokaev sits down, he's gonna fuck around and get uppercutted. Like Erceg's the guy to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Or throw a knee right there, just real quick. Astro Boy his head off.
Shooting lazy shots on a guy like Erceg, like you can figure that out. I don't know, man. I'm high on him. He's only 3 fights in, and this was the first ranked guy I think he's beaten. No, he's beaten two ranked guys.
Here, I got his.
So it's like
he beat David Dvorak, and he's beat. He's beaten 3 ranked guys. Who was
the third?
Was Alessandro? Oh, Alessandro
Costa. No, he's not. But he's also like Costa's like. I have him out of my can tier, just barely. But like I don't have him like in the can tier. I have Costa like kind of like by Altamirano and Hadley and Felipe dos Santos and guys like that. Like I don't think those are cans, but
he's gonna be a guy that's hard to know because he's lost to Erceg by decision and Albazi by finish in the third, and it's like, well, those are 2 great fighters.
Tough schedule. Yeah, tough schedule. Man, there's a chance they do Erceg Mokaev. I can see him doing like Erceg Cop. They don't do Erceg Nicolau. I don't think Nicolau deserves that. I think Cop Erceg. Cara France Erceg is fire.
Ooh, see, now here's the little backstory I want to bring to the table with that is that he does not train with those guys. He is from New Zealand, but he does not train with those like the city kickboxing guys. And on his page, he has himself as the #1 flyweight in Australia and New Zealand. And you got to ask yourself, how could you say that if Cara France is ranked ahead of you in the same division in the same weight class?
If they made Erceg Car France, I have a feeling, at least at the start of the week, Erceg would probably be an underdog. And I'm going down there on a Monday and getting that plus money ticket.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Give me Erceg for forever in that fight. That's crazy.
Because I think. And then as far as, you know what I want to see next for Matt Schnell? And obviously he's got to take some time off. That was a brutal knockout. So maybe this won't happen next. Or maybe it'll be next for Schnell, but not next for the guy what I'm about to say. Bro, I want to see him fight Tatsuro Taira. I would love that.
Honestly,
guys, because
I could see that happening.
You just get knocked out real bad. You give him a grappler. It's not like.
I agree with
maybe
you.
Tatsuro picks up one more like kind of low end win, and then Schnell takes 6 months off and fights Taira in the fall or winter.
Like if Taira beats like a Sumu Darji or an Ulanbekov, it sets up perfectly for Schnell next.
Because I'm high on Taira, and that's like a fun matchup because Schnell can scramble, Schnell can go. Yeah, that's what I would do next for Schnell. And then for Erceg, I mean, there's a lot. Erceg gets performance of the night bonus, man. I didn't bet it just because the minus 455 just didn't want to lay it. But man, high on Erceg. I got him up at number 6 in my power rankings. I got Erceg at 6, bro.
He deserves to be there. He deserves to be there. Like, he looks great, man. He looks great. Like, when I watch him, I'm just like, it's a complete fighter. Like, he looks really solid. Really composed, too. Like, his composure is
starting to be a fan of. Like, he does kind of remind me of O'Malley, not personality-wise, or like, because he's like personality-wise, he's very different than O'Malley.
Quite the opposite.
But it's like the build, the rise.
Octagon, too. Like, the way he fights, like, so composed, so fluid. Yeah, he's nice with it. He's so nice with it.
Which is fun, bro, because it's just been rematch city at flyweight. I mean, how many Figueiredos and Morenos and Royvilles and Pantosias are we going to see, man? I mean, literally, like the whole era of the Beefy Boys Breakdown. That's all it's been. So, like I said, Mokaev, not the best performance. Erceg, badass performance. I'm ready for just this division. It's going to be a fun year for flyweights.
Well,
man.
That new wave of flyweights is coming. Like, you can mark our words on it. Like, we usually are pretty good at seeing when the division's about to turn over. By this time next year, you're going to see a lot of those 10, counting Taira in this, but like 10 through 6 is going to start to flip up to 5 through 1.
Yeah, no, high on Taira. Other people are high on Albazi. He's younger. He's around. I mean, yeah, bro. Even like, bro, like the Joshua Vans and like Ala Nascimentos of the world, like there's some depth. Like there's some killers like in the middle or the back of the division too. That just hasn't quite got there yet.
Alessandro Costa will probably end up being a top 15 guy, I would bet.
He very well could, dude. And like you still got the Sumu Darjis and fucking CJ Vergara's and that Hyun-Sung Park kid we saw a few weeks ago. He's an undefeated killer, just waiting his turn. So.
And I will say this, too, man, as the UFC keeps doing the road to UFC Asia, they're going to get a lot of really good lighter weight fighters because just naturally Asian people, like, smaller people.
Body types. Yeah. No, I mean, like, bro, Hyun-Sung Park, Tatsuro Taira, Joshua Van is, like, raised in the West, but he's of Asian descent. And, like, I mean, yeah, the young Asian flyweights are fire, bro. I'm here for it.
Yeah, 100%. But I guess that wraps it up for the main card, does it not?
It does, brother, man. So interact with us on Twitter. We have a lot of fun on there, especially on fight days at Beefy Breakdown. We made an Instagram. It's kind of still getting off the ground. Give that a look at Beefy Boys Breakdown. And please, just subscribe. We're giving you winners. And we're going to have a video coming to you this week for UFC 299. A picks that, bro, my picks went real quick. I got to flex real quick, just so you know.
8 out of 9.
Watch the betting video. 8 out of 9. Fucking 89% for those math wizards out there.
And you did give a warning
I feel better.
On the one loss. We did put a warning out. So.
We did. And
almost like offering insurance, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, so check out that betting video, subscribe, and cash these tickets with us, y'all. Thanks so much for watching.
Yes, sir. We'll see you next week.